Hello YouTube and welcome to an all new Elder Scrolls lore video. Today we're having a video about unicorns. These staples of fantasy and fairy tales actually make an appearance in the Elder Scrolls universe. So let's see what they're all about and how they're actually different from usual unicorns and other types of fantasy. So, unicorns. They are creatures which seem very not Elder Scrolls. I mean, the Elder Scrolls has a lot of strange monsters and very much has its own identity when it comes to creatures. And when it takes something from other types of fantasy or fairy tales, think about, for example, the concept of a high elf, they tend to change it to a degree where it feels distinct from other types of fantasy and it feels Elder Scrolls. But then we have the unicorn. The unicorn is such a mainstream thing from general fantasy and fairy tales, and yet it's one of the few things which on the surface does not seem to have changed at all that much from the mainstream concept of a unicorn from mainstream fantasy when it got translated into the Elder Scrolls. I mean, it's a majestic white horse with a long horn on its forehead, which has a spiral pattern on it. I mean, almost the exact way how a unicorn is portrayed in stuff like fairy tales, Harry Potter, and even Barbie, as I distinctly remember my little sister having this unicorn with her Barbie set, which looked exactly like this, essentially. So, yeah, on the surface, the Elder Scrolls unicorn seems like it's nothing special, but the writers did create an interesting story around the unicorns in the Elder Scrolls universe, which sets it apart from mainstream fantasy. At least a bit. You see, in the Elder Scrolls universe, unicorns are actually Daedric creatures, which are native to the Oblivion plane called the Hunting Grounds, which is the domain of the Daedric prince Hircine, the Daedric prince of the hunt, master of beasts and master of the chase. His realm of the Hunting Grounds is essentially a realm of pure nature, thick forests combined with grassy plains and mountains, all populated by a variety of wildlife from deer to cattle to wolves to bears, and some say even bigger predators. This entire ecosystem is designed by Hircine to be one big hunting ground, where he and his followers, whose souls have entered his realm, can enjoy the thrills of the spectacular hunts together. Some of the more mundane wildlife inside the hunting grounds is actually taken from Tamriel into the hunting grounds, so into Oblivion, by Hircine. But Hircine has also created many of his own hunting prey, from far larger and stronger versions of regular animals to unicorns as some of the ultimate prey for the hunt. He created the unicorns as a hunting challenge, making them extremely fast and agile. Some of the unicorns that he created were said to have been faster on land than a dragon is in flight, shooting over the fields and through the forest like a silver stripe. They can jump over 9 feet high, and some apparently have wings or some other method of flight, as they can somehow fly through the air. I mean, it's possible that Hircine created some variants which have wings for the extra challenge. Now, it can also handle itself well in combat against any who would trap it, as a long, deadly horn made out of ivory, and in the cases of some other unicorns apparently even silver, that horn can deal deadly damage to hunters. And when the horn is damaged or destroyed in combat, it can even be regenerated again, usually in just a few minutes or even less. The interesting thing is that unicorns have become this mythical, almost deity-like creature for the people of Tamriel in their folktales, with many not even believing that they exist. But in Tamrielic folktales they have become almost these supernatural creatures of everything that's good and this sort of mythical enemy against the evil Daedra. This shows how the Elder Scrolls is so full of unreliable narrators, as this story that the people of Tamriel fabricated likely originated in the stories of the hunters in the forest seeing unicorns being chased by Hircine and his Daedric servants and followers, as sometimes Hircine and his aspects bring unicorns into Tamriel to hunt them in a very different and unpredictable forest. Which is also the reason why there are some but very few wild unicorns on Tamriel, since they are the ultimate hunting challenge. Some probably managed to escape and thus eventually made their home on Tamriel, after escaping from Hircine and his Daedric hunters in their hunt. I mean, there's a reason why Hircine calls them the last tamed, as they are a serious challenge in the hunt, even for him, a Daedric prince. But due to their elusive nature, very few mortals have actually seen one, and those who did were not often believed by their peers. And those who did believe the sightings rationalized that the creature must be on the verge of extinction, but they generally aren't, as they are simply not native to Tamriel, but were brought to Tamriel's ecosystems from the outside, especially for the hunt and for the pleasure of the Daedric prince Hircine. That does not mean that there haven't been any sightings or even mortals to bring unicorns down which escaped Hircine's hunt. A feat which can be used to instantly gain Hircine's respect, by the way, since this is how a unicorn appears in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, as a creature to hunt down by the player so that the player can offer its horn to Hircine to gain his favor and thus a Daedric artifact. But that horn, I mean, it's almost a waste to present it to Hircine. Unicorn horns are extremely rare and very much sought after for its strong alchemical properties, and sometimes just as a status symbol, fetching enormous prices when offered to nobles who would just like to have it for themselves. A bit of a shame that that's not an option in Oblivion, as a greedy roleplay character would definitely want to do that, but never mind. That being said, that's basically all that we have on the unicorns. They are pretty interesting creatures and make even an appearance in Skyrim's Creation Club DLC, with this creation specifically being made by modders and not by Bethesda themselves. Now, I usually consider Creation Club content worth a mention, but the story of this one is very strange, considering that all the other lore around unicorns doesn't really tend to match up with it. I don't mean to offend anyone with this video, but the modder who made this was likely not too much up to speed with the lore around unicorns, even though he's a very talented modder, but yeah, I don't consider it canon. The plot of this creation revolves around a unicorn which was sighted in Skyrim, which was apparently a unicorn transported into the future by the Psijic Order, so that the unicorns would not go extinct. And then the Dragonborn tames one. Yeah, pretty weak tea, to be honest, but you know, Creation Club stuff tends to be very hit or miss on lore friendliness depending on which modder made the content. I mean, they are all very talented modders, but probably not all too much into the lore of the series. Which is fine, we're not all nerds like me. Anyway, that's all I can say about unicorns, and I truly hope that you learned something new about the Elder Scrolls lore today. And if you did, maybe return for the next Elder Scrolls lore video, probably next week. Anyway, it's now time for me to end the video, so all that left for me now is to vocally thank my top Patreon supporters, Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, Polaris Putin, Athena Iodis, Volkjor of Argonia, King Krish, Bolch, Scribe of the Scrolls, Doji, Fenrir, Sword of Bushido, Rakai, Sar Mikal, and Mr. Christmas. It's thanks to these people and all the others on screen that this channel stays alive, and for that I'm very grateful. That said, I hope to see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.